Hello and welcome to Radio Espial. Mick Rooney here, investigative journalist. Just very quickly, Radio Espial, www.radioespial.com. We're also on YouTube and other podcast channels. As you will have seen from the thumbnail, we're dealing with a timeline and analysis, a new case we haven't covered. This is one that I was asked to cover, and I've been very much looking at this case over many years. It goes back to 1998. It is, of course, the Deirdre Jacob case. Just very quickly, housekeeping. Thank you for all the recent subscribers to the YouTube channel. You're very welcome if you're obviously new here. Let's get to the case. As always, wherever you see this in podcast or videocast, a like, a subscribe, it does help, a share as well. But let's focus on what you're all here for. The case of Deirdre Jacob. I'm going to start with the summary of Deirdre, and then we're going to get into our usual timeline analysis. As usual, there'll be a lot of inserts, bit of mapping, 3D mapping. There'll also be some news inserts just to give you a greater depth of this case. There's a lot in this case, so let's get on with it. Deirdre Jacob is an Irish woman who disappeared very near her parents' home just outside Newbridge town, County Kildare, Ireland, on the 28th of July 1998 at the age of 18. In August 2018, the Garda Síochána, which is the Irish police, announced that her disappearance was being treated as a murder case. Now, the basic case summary: Deirdre Jacob was born on October the 14th, 1979, to Michael and Bernadette Jacob, and she spent her childhood growing up in a bungalow just outside Newbridge, County Kildare, in an area called Roseberry. During the 1980s, it was a quiet place and had yet to see the sprawling housing developments that would soon come to the area. Brought up in a Catholic family, her parents described Deirdre as bookish, and in secondary school she sang for several years in the church choir and also helped out in a local Sunday school for younger children. She played guitar and piano, and she loved to write. When she completed school, Deirdre continued her passion for writing, playing the piano, and she quickly decided she wanted to teach kids. She left Ireland in 1997 and she began studying to be a primary level teacher at St Mary's College in Twickenham, London, to qualify for that role. By May 1998, which was her first year of study that she'd completed, she returned back to her parents' home in Newbridge, Ireland. During her time in college, she'd recently begun a romantic relationship around April with a classmate called Charlie. And I'll leave it there. Deirdre wants him to visit Ireland that summer, and she's eager to bring him over and meet her parents and show him the sights of Ireland in August. Her family are looking forward to that visit. Deirdre was also looking forward to seeing old school friends on her summer trip back home with her parents. And Bernadette, her mother, had assisted her in getting a part-time job in the HSE, which is the health service executive in Ireland, where she worked herself. Her dad, Michael, worked as an official at Tiasca, which is like an agricultural advisory body locally. Deirdre had a younger sister, Ciara, who was still at secondary school level. I think Ciara was 14 at the time of Deirdre's disappearance. Always planning ahead, on July 28, Deirdre left her home and walked into Newbridge town to organise a bank draft to send to her flatmate in London for the accommodation she would return to when the study year started again, as summer gave way to autumn. She also wanted to post some letters she had written the previous evening, July 27th, to send to friends. She was very close to her grandmother, her maternal grandmother, who ran a sweet shop in Newbridge, and it was an opportunity to also spend time with her the following day. Deirdre made the walking trip to Newbridge town. This is on the July 28th, Tuesday, deposited money, and finally sorted out her bank draft. And along with some letters she posted, she also popped in twice to her grandmother's shop that early afternoon. Her grandmother ran like a sweets and toy shop in Newbridge town. Deirdre then started a 25-minute walk back home around 2:35 to 3 p.m. There's reason to believe Deirdre almost got home. Witness accounts from locals, possibly as far as the entry to her parents' road, driveway and home. But after that, Deirdre Jacob vanished into thin air. This is the timeline and the study of her disappearance as it unfolded, hour by hour, day by day, month by month, and it's a missing person case that would ultimately be upgraded to suspected murder over the 25 years since her disappearance. As I always say when we do these timelines, I need people who join me to go through them to switch off from 2023. Park your mind back to 1998. If you've got a memory of 1998, fix on that. Think about the smells, the sound, what was happening then, your own experiences then, because that's where this case is. We can't, this case isn't going to be solved by trying to apply what happens in 2023 back to 1998. And I say this a number of times when we do the timeline. I always feel that that's the key to the timeline. So back in 1998, it's late May, June. Deirdre Jacob has just returned from the UK and from her teacher studies in London. It is our second visit back to Ireland already in 1998. She had returned to complete a short work placement in Ireland with our old primary school in Newbridge as part of our college studies in the UK. She has lots of plans for the summer break in Ireland before returning back to St Mary's College in London in the autumn. But she wants to keep active and busy in Newbridge with her parents, family and friends. She's still sorting out some details for the coming second year of her teacher studies. She's in a very positive frame of mind. She has lots of catching up to do. Her mother has helped her get a part-time job in August with the HSE, which is the Health Service Advisory Board. But there's always time for family and friends. Now, on the day of her disappearance, which is just before then, between Friday, July the 24th and Monday, the 27th of July. This is prior to her disappearance, just the week coming up to her disappearance. Deirdre spends the weekend in King's Court, County Cavan, staying with two female friends she wanted to catch up with. She returns to her parents' home in Roseberry, Newbridge on the evening of Monday, July 27th, having enjoyed her stay in Cavan, and she is eager to tell her parents about her old school friends. Her parents say goodnight to her that evening, and they are struck by how positive their daughter is and in good spirits. Deirdre is engrossed in writing letters she wants to post to friends the following day. Tuesday, the 28th, 1998. This is the day of her disappearance. Deirdre wakes late and her two parents have left for work, but she has already shared plans the previous evening of her day ahead. She particularly wants to spend some time with her grandmother that afternoon. Her younger sister Kira is on school holidays. She's 14. She's on school holidays, but she's staying with a friend that day. To the best of what is understood, Deirdre is up and active at home in Roseberry around 10:30 to 12 noon, having breakfast and doing some household chores. At noon that day, Bernadette Jacob phones her daughter at home using the landline. So she's phoning from work to the landline at home in the Roseberry bungalow. Deirdre confirms that she will visit her Granny O'Grady at the sweet and toy shop in Newbridge town. Now we know that Deirdre Jacob must have left home soon after this phone call. And we'll find out, we'll explore why we know that. In the following 1 hour window, she's left the house, made the 20 to 25 minute walk from Roseberry, briefly called into her grandmother for the first time that day, and then reached Newbridge branch of the AIB bank in the town. 12:58 p.m. Why are we so precise about that time? Well, Deirdre Jacob is captured on CCTV at the Newbridge AIB bank. She's just leaving the bank and believed to be heading back to her grandmother's shop to spend a little more time with her. She has to return to the bank later to collect the bank draft to post to the UK. This is in regards to paying for her forthcoming accommodation in the autumn. To the best I can discern in this case, it looks like Deirdre made an initial deposit to her account so that the bank draft could be, as it were, raised and fulfilled, and she could then collect it from the bank. Garda, Irish Police, have only released a limited amount of the more substantial CCTV footage they have. This is a still from her visit to the AIB Newbridge bank branch. She's leaving at this point. I want you to note the time. Again, see that time? 12:58 and 46 seconds. 28th of July. That's her leaving with that distinctive CAT cat bag. 1 p.m. to 2:20 p.m. This is the period Deirdre visits her grandmother's shop for a second time that day. She stopped briefly by initially when she left home and went to Newbridge town. But after she does her business in the bank, she goes back to her grandmother's at the shop. Later, she leaves her grandmother again and she goes back to pick up the bank draft, and also she has with her in her bag post those letters she wrote the previous evening that I talked about. At 2:20 p.m, again, CCTV footage shows Deirdre entering that AIB branch. This is to collect the bank draft, the sterling bank draft, so she can send, because then she's got to go to the post office. 2:20 to 2:25 p.m, Deirdre leaves that AIB bank, crosses the road, and heads to the local post office in the town. Briefly, she meets an old friend and has a quick chat. This image you're looking at is from the post office, and it's time-stamped at 14:26. That's when she arrived and joined the queue at the post office, and you'll see her there once again, dressed similarly, carrying the bag again, and her intention now is to post the bank draft plus the letters she'd written the previous day. 2:26 p.m. Deirdre, as I've just said, she's seen at the post office at the back of the queue. There's about 4 people ahead of her. When she finishes her business at the post office, she chats to another friend she's just met and recognised. Again, this is all captured on CCTV. So we're starting to see how recognised Deirdre is in the town of Newbridge and the general locale. 2:35 p.m. Deirdre has now left the post office. She's effectively finished her business in the town for the day. So she starts walking back down the town, heading back towards her house in Roseberry. She passes a number of premises, one of which is the Irish Permanent Bank building in Newbridge town. She doesn't go in. It's nothing of her dealings that day. She simply passes it. You're gonna now see that video footage. The image I'm showing you here is just a still from it, 14:35, 29 seconds, and that red circle, elliptical, is Deirdre herself. But I'm also going to show you the video, and we're going to go to that now. So we're sometime just shortly before 3 p.m. It's about now, or maybe shortly after 3 p.m, that Deirdre Jacob should be arriving home at Roseberry. Not just CCTV, but 8 witnesses have come forward to say they saw Deirdre in that 40-minute window. So we're working from 2:20 to around 3 p.m. 6 of them either knew and recognised Deirdre, and only 2 of them did not know her and were just simply relying on public requests from police for information when they came forward. She exchanges pleasantries with a number of people who recognised her as she heads down the Barrettstown Road. Around the time she's on the Barrettstown Road, which is probably before 3 p.m, she's just around 10 minutes away from the junction she'll turn to make her way to Roseberry and her home. Now, don't worry, I will go into more detail about that journey. I'm not just glossing over it. We are going to go into that because we're getting up to map time soon. This is the general map. Now, I want to qualify. We cannot be, other than the stages of eyewitnesses reporting seeing Deirdre, when she left the bottom of Newbridge town and headed towards her home in Roseberry, we cannot be absolutely certain of the exact route she took, because there's a few kind of there's a few ways that you can get there when you leave Newbridge town. You know, you can go up side streets, you can sort of zigzag about, go left, go up a bit, go right, you know. But ultimately, she has to get back onto the main, I think it's O'Connell Weir, Barrettstown Road to get into Roseberry. So this is believed to be the most likely journey and most direct journey that she would have taken. All the other routes, she could have taken them, but there's no reason to believe time-wise that it would get her there any quicker. And due to the eyewitnesses' accounts, it suggests that this is very much likely the route that she did take. She stuck to the main route along adjacent to the River Liffey. Again, when we do the 3D map time, we'll go into that in more detail. So that's just a general, just so you can kind of visualize, but you're going to even see more visualization shortly. So out of Newbridge town, with several options, Deirdre must aim for the Barrettstown Road and then into Roseberry. This is a very different area in 2023 than it was in 1998. Once well out of the town, pedestrians needed to circumnavigate it, crossing over streams, bridges, as well as passing fields on either side. Roads did have walkways on both sides. Also, the area was far less built up with residential homes. The houses back then were long-term locals. A neighbour also recognises Deirdre passing on the road. He's doing repairs on the front outside of his house. Deirdre is now about 2 minutes walk from her driveway and house. I'll talk about the driveway and house a little bit more shortly. Although not certain, from police requests for information, a passing motorist believes she saw Deirdre near her driveway gates to her home. Deirdre's bungalow is set back in from the road, and it's somewhat secluded back then by large trees and shrubbery. So what we're going to do now is, as I said, we're going to take a closer look at Deirdre's journey from Newbridge town to her home in Roseberry, because this is really the absolute critical part of this case. And then we're going to look at what unfolded later that evening. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go to this 3D map. Map time. Right, so this is the very bottom of Newbridge town. As you would enter it as if you came off the motorway and were coming in that way. Now, I've no reason to believe that Deirdre on the morning of July 28th would have come this far up to the bottom of the village. Her business probably much further up here. So we're going to take a sort of virtual journey and hopefully go to the area where lived in Roseberry, and it's just going to give you an idea of the landmarks. Hopefully we can, because literally I'm doing this for the first time, we're going to find some of those landmarks. I've done this briefly once, maybe I passed it and missed it. I cannot find the AIB branch, the bank. I have found other banks, but however, let's push on. So we don't think Deirdre was this far up the village. She likely was further down. Deirdre grew up in this area, Newbridge and the Roseberry area, all her life until she moved to the UK to study. So she knows this area absolutely like the back of her hand. Believe me, more than I do, and I'm not the greatest with directions. As we move through here, you can see it's now getting a bit more bustling. It's a very thriving and busy. Now, incidentally, I want to mention, obviously this is street maps. This is 23. Okay, so you have to put yourself back in 1998. So, you know, there would have been differences in buildings, shop names, locations. So do bear that in mind. You know, if you see something here, think, oh, why didn't they have remember, you know, an awful lot of these places may not have existed back in 1998. Places change. Streets have been developed since then. So do bear that in mind as we work our way through. So put yourself back to 1998. You can see this is a very bustling area. There's lots of people around, lots of movement, lots of noise, lots of traffic. You're going about your business, whether you're doing shopping, you're going to the bank, you're going to the post office. There's lots of movement and things happening around you. People driving around, you're navigating, maybe crossing the road once, twice, back and forward. Move down. There was a number of premises that picked Deirdre up on CCTV. I know a few of them that I'm going to try and pick out here. If I can come across them. That's Penny's, the shopping centre. Here we go. This is what I missed on my first sweep by. Here we go. First protocol. This is the AIB bank. This is the bank that Deirdre went to. Initially, I think she lodged a sterling cheque against her account to raise the money that she needed to take out a UK bank draft. And she had to go back to the bank later, I think after lunch. She was requested to go back to the bank just to pick up the bank draft when it was ready for her. So this is the first main location that Deirdre visited that day. Now, there's a post office. I do not know where the post office is, but the recollection was that she crossed over the road, so maybe somewhere on this side there's a post office. We can look out for it. But I also want to point out some other landmarks. There were multiple landmarks. Here's another one of them. This, ironically, and it probably says an awful lot of the time. Another bank, the Bank of Ireland. Nothing to do with Deirdre as far as her business was concerned that day, but this was another premises and location where CCTV picked her up on the day, and her movements sort of back and forwards between the AIB bank, her granny, the post office, and that infamous CCTV footage that was released, identifying Deirdre walking past. That was the last CCTV footage before she exited the village, and that was I think it was the Irish Permanent Bank. I believe it's on the left hand side of the road. As we come down here, we'll see if we can spot it. Put your mind now 2:20 around then. She's left the bank. Here it is. Sorry, of course, as usual, I'm wrong. It's on the right hand side, crossed over. So I'm gonna presume that the post office was back here in this direction that we've just walked along. That black and white CCTV footage that you see Deirdre walking along, this is the premises where that was actually taken, and it's the last CCTV footage we have of Deirdre that day, or at least the last premises out of, I think there were 4 like kind of bank credit card companies, or like kind of building societies, banks, the post office, but there were 2 or 3 other buildings. I believe there were restaurants that also picked her up on CCTV footage. Now, what's happening now is we're getting towards the end of Newbridge, and we're going to exit the actual town itself, and we're going to come to a crossroads. And at this point, and remember, Deirdre is walking a left turn out of what you see there, Main Street, up to the junction here, and now we're going to swing a left. So Canning Place is the likely area that she turned left at the end of the village and began our way. Now, I should stress, and this is the unknown, after that footage at the Permanent TSB Bank, further back on this road. It's possible she knew a side street to cut through in this direction and go over here somewhere, and maybe come back out onto Canning Road, because ultimately she's got to get out onto the old Connell Weir and Barrettstown Road, which is where this road leads. So she's ultimately still got to cut back out, but maybe she knew a shortcut. But this is the most likely route though that she took. Now, the first, I think, striking thing, and again, remember, this is 2023 street map footage you're looking at. This place wasn't quite as developed in 1998. We're talking 25 years ago. You're going to notice as we go down here, well, the first thing is that waterway you see on the right hand side, that's actually the River Liffey, which runs from Dublin through into Kildare. We're on to Rowan Terrace now. These look like older houses. I'm usually reasonably good at guessing the age and style of houses. These houses definitely were here in 1998. I'm familiar with places like Walkinstown and Drimnagh, and these are similar style houses, and those houses definitely would have been here in Newbridge in 1998. It's the roadway and the footpaths and the development that might be slightly different. So we continue on down Rowan Terrace, and you're going to start to see now some limitations on travel, and we're swinging around now slightly to the left, so we're sort of curling up almost back towards the other side of the village. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the secondary school college of Newbridge. We get to a sort of roundabout here. I suspect this roundabout wouldn't have been here in 1998, and these houses now look like it may not have been here in 1998, and you're really getting into an area where back in 1998 this area was probably an awful lot more field and looking an awful lot more rural. And you'll see that as we go down this road. I believe we're now onto that part of the old O'Connell Weir stretch, is it? I think we are. And now you can really start to see, notice we've moved from double-storey houses. We're now seeing an awful lot more bungalows, which is the style of house that Deirdre grew up in Roseberry. So you can see it's not a huge journey, but it is a lengthy enough journey of around 20 to 25 minutes. One thing I will say is that Deirdre was well known to be a fast walker with a very significant long stride. So I'm kind of thinking that she would have done this journey, estimated maybe 25-30 minutes maximum walking. She'd have probably done this journey in 20 minutes, I think. So if we go from 2:35 to 3 o'clock, there's no doubt she would have been almost at her home by 3 o'clock. One thing I want to point out, and again, this is probably closer, this area here in 2023 is probably closer to what the area looked like in 1998. Less developed. You'll suddenly notice we've lost the footpath on the left hand side. So Deirdre's journey would have also had periods where she had to cross over the road to follow a footpath because there wasn't an available footpath on the other side. You can even see there's traffic calming here, traffic lights, and this is after development in the area because traffic built up because so many residential homes were built. And and you can see where there's calming, where cars can only come in one direction. The lights go red for the other side. Cars come through. The lights then go red on the opposite side of the road. A single file of traffic. So you get that sense, you know, of this is closer to the... Now, I mean, look at this area here. We've now got valley drops, fields, and we are pretty much... I'm not going to show you the house itself for privacy reasons, but we're pretty much now into the Roseberry area where the Jacob's house is. Again, a lot of these houses here are brand new. There were fields on the opposite sides here. I'm going to leave it here now because we now are pretty much in the area where it grew up and where the bungalow or home is. It's actually not quite. It's actually set off in an area of this road. Okay, let's get back to our timeline. I at least hope you understand why I took the time to do that 3D Google Street Map coverage, because I think it just gives a better understanding, despite the fact that the Google Street Map is from 2023, but there are still parts of that journey that look very similar to the journey that she took, and I think it just gives a better visualization. We skipped over it, that's fair enough. We're back now to the day of her disappearance. It's 6:45 p.m. in the evening, July 28, 1998. Bernadette Jacob returns home from work with the HSE in Naas, which is in Kildare, it's not too far away, and finds the house empty and still locked up the way Deirdre left it earlier that day. There are absolutely no signs of burglary or anything out of place. She's worried and begins making phone calls, surprised not to find her daughter back at home. At 8 p.m, Michael Jacob, the father, returns home from work, and now both parents realise something seriously wrong. Bernadette can find nobody who has talked to or seen Deirdre since around 2 to 3 p.m. that day. Michael follows up on earlier phone calls, and within an hour he decides that I believe actually both parents went to the police station, but initially he contacts Newbridge police station to report their daughter missing. Ultimately the couple will actually go there as well themselves. 10 p.m. to midnight. Now, unlike some other cases, local Gardaí take the Jacob family seriously about their concerns, and searches in the vicinity begin by 11 p.m. You know, we've seen so many cases. I'm thinking of, oh God, the majority of cases we've kind of looked at, particularly in Ireland. Bernadette Connolly, Trevor Deely, in Portugal, Jean Toy, you know, where so much time was lost excuse me, because in those crucial golden hours time was just wasted, because either the police said, oh, she's probably just, you know, gone off somewhere, don't be worrying, it'll be fine in the morning, sure, she'll turn up. And in fairness, a lot of cases work out that way. The person wasn't actually missing, they just couldn't be contacted. But being in a local area, the Newbridge police, in their initial assessment, when Bernadette and Michael Jacob contacted them, they picked up straight away, yeah, this sounds like something isn't right here. Wednesday, the 29th of July 1998, this is the following morning, day after the disappearance. Searches begin to intensify in Newbridge town and the greater area, but it would still take a few days for the case to fully capture news headlines, and that's so critical in these cases. and of course there's still no contact or trace of Deirdre. Friday the 31st of July. When last seen, Deirdre was wearing a navy Nike jumper with white collar, blue jeans and blue Nike running shoes. She was carrying a black bag with cat written in yellow on the flap. I think you're familiar with it. If I have a photograph, I'll try and insert it here. I don't know whether I've inserted it. I don't think I have. But I'll try and insert that in the video. She was also carrying a mustard coloured purse with a Levi trademark stamp on it. A nationwide appeal is made after she vanished just 300 metres from her home in Newbridge. So this is when the news of Deirdre being missing starts to really hit the news headlines. This was the early on the official. This one's from Crime Stoppers, but they're all very similar. About Deirdre and the details, the description of her, and various other details, and obviously the contact numbers. You know, sadly tough for the family, but guess what? We're already into August now. August 1998. On the 2nd of that month, Gardaí issued an appeal for Deirdre, last seen close to her gateway of her house. Described her as 5 feet 2 inches, slim build, dark hair, green grey eyes. On the 5th of August, they actually carry out a full reconstruction of her movements in Newbridge from Roseberry to Newbridge and back again. They film it for like a typical Crime Stoppers or Crime Call documentary. Again, this is really where the case starts to ramp up media-wise. Police continue to search fields and riverbanks and the adjacent River Liffey looking for her, and detectives urge anyone who may have seen Deirdre to come forward. And of course, when the media get involved, there's a media frenzy because it so happened she lived 50 kilometres from Moon in County Kildare, another town village. This is the village where Jojo Dullard made her last phone call before she too disappeared, but that was 2 years earlier. In a blast of media interviews, while still hoping, the Jacob family reveal their deepest fears and reality on the last weekend of August 1998, that Deirdre was abducted close to her home by someone. Between September and December 1998, a renewed appeal for missing Deirdre is made on RTE's National Crime Line programme. This was a part of that footage that they filmed previously to include in this programme. A number of erroneous sightings and claims will emerge over several months, some spurious, some from genuine eyewitnesses from all around Ireland. Gardaí evaluate, test and eliminate many of these lines of inquiry. By January 1999, another false line of inquiry emerges, but initially it appears to have more substance. Bernadette Jacob receives a letter from a man who already made 10 anonymous phone calls about Deirdre since her disappearance. He sends the Jacob parents a 4-page letter revealing that he is from County Fermanagh in Northern Ireland. After national appeals to identify the man on radio and TV, it is revealed to be a complete hoax, and the man had serious mental health issues, having become fascinated with the case. You've heard me talk about this, I'm not going to go on about it again. This is one of the secondary tragedies of cases like this. Time wasters, people with, God love them, mental health issues who become fixated with cases and completely throw a case off for a period of time and distract it with complete nonsense or just I don't know what more to say. You know, unfortunately it happens too often, and we've seen it, you know, even in recent cases I've covered. 1999 to 2008, so we're going to have to start taking some leaps here, because really the progression of the case is slow and there's not enough and much developing. With no further leads in this case, a reward of €100,000 has been set aside by detectives for anybody who can solve the disappearance of Deirdre. It is the 10th anniversary of our missing person case, that they're referring to 2008. Similar rewards are made by Gardaí and private entities in the cases of Annie McCarrick, Jojo Dullard, Fiona Pender, Ciara Breen and Fiona Sinnott, who all disappeared in the same decade. I believe, if I'm correct, the Jacob family also themselves privately raised €10,000 as a reward for anybody with information leading to finding their daughter Deirdre. 2009 to 2018. The family continued to make annual appeals in the case of their missing daughter. In August 2018, Deirdre Jacob's missing person case is finally upgraded to a murder inquiry by Gardaí, following case reviews and the input of a new cold case team. The following is just one of many TV appearances the Jacob parents will make. This one is from 2013. Let's take a look and a listen.
Distraught, anguished and bewildered, the parents of Deirdre Jacob once again today pleaded for help in finding their daughter as the 15th anniversary of her disappearance approaches.
We're no further on, we're no wiser today than we were on the day she went missing. So this is why we're here. We're trying to appeal to people, to somebody to help us, because we need to find our child.
The 18-year-old student teacher was only around 100 yards from her home when she disappeared at Barrettstown Road, Roseberry, as she walked home from Newbridge on the 28th of July 1998. No one knows what happened to her that day. Her family haven't forgotten her.
Deirdre's disappearance has had huge impact on our lives. Everywhere we go, we're looking through people. We're just wondering, would Deirdre turn up that way? Every time we drive out to the gateway, as we're going out onto the road, it will cross our minds. We may not say it to each other, but it's on our minds. Well, this is where Deirdre was last sighted.
There's constant speculation that criminals convicted of attacks on women in the area, Larry Murphy or John Crerar, could have been involved in Deirdre's disappearance. But Gardaí say there's no evidence of this, the case is not solved, and therefore they still need information.
Well, it's important for people to remember that the case is open, we're still looking for information. And sometimes if the public go down one particular track, it can detract from the fact that we're looking for information, we're keeping all our options open, and we'd appeal to people to come forward at this stage.
It's not unusual for cases to be solved years after they occur, because new information emerges and/or new witnesses come forward. 15 years on, the Gardaí and the Jacob family still hope that this could happen in Deirdre's case.
5 years later, in 2018, the Jacob family struggled to come to terms with news from the official Gardaí investigation team that their daughter's case has been upgraded to a murder case. They reveal a little bit more personal details about Deirdre and their interaction with her on the evening of Monday, July 27th, 1998. And this particular appeal, I'm including it because I think it's relevant, because they obviously emotionally talk in more detail about Deirdre, the amazing person she was, and I just think it's relevant to include this at this point. So again, let's just take a watch and a listen.
Bernie, can I first ask you, I suppose, your reaction to the fact now that the investigation has been upgraded to a murder? What, I suppose, your initial thoughts are when you were told that by Gardaí?
Well, we obviously when you hear those words and it's upgraded to murder, that is even though we knew it was coming along, it's still a shock when you hear those cold words, and it's a real heart-wrencher. And when we heard it on the radio this morning, we were literally stunned by it. It's a big shock. It's a big shock.
No one wants to hear that their child has been murdered, and it's very difficult to take it.
Does it give you any sense of closure at all that that I suppose that chapter of this investigation has now closed?
The investigation is still ongoing, and we're still at the same position as we were yesterday. We're still looking for more information, and so are the Gardaí. A lot more information needs to come in, and I suppose maybe it's now focused and very definitely in a particular direction.
Told you any more about the information that they have, or that what line of inquiries they're taking on this?
We are kept fully informed by the progress that the Gardaí are making, and always have been. Over the years, we've had a very close working relationship with the Gardaí, and it's one of the things that actually keeps one going when one is kept informed about what's going on, and for that we're always very, very, very thankful.
A little bit about Deirdre, the type of person she was.
Well, she was a very happy-go-lucky girl. She was had a great circle of friends. She and kept in very, very close contact with them. Her interests were. Maybe Barry, you can fill her better on the various interests that she had.
Well, she played the piano and the guitar, and she liked socialising with her friends, and she was a reader, and she was big into letter writing. Now, she didn't have a mobile phone because it was only at early stages of the mobile phones becoming so popular. So she would be big into letter writing, and when she was at college in Twickenham in London, we would regularly get letters and we would write, and even the evening before she went missing, when we went in to say goodnight to her, she was writing a letter.
Yes, she was writing letters to her friends, describing the weekend that they had, and that was very much her way of keeping in contact, if you like.
So we're up to October 2021. Gardaí over the years will undertake a number of lengthy searches, sometimes taking periods of days, sometimes weeks, following information received into the case as leads in the areas of Kildare and Wicklow, also concerning other missing women, but make no case advances in the Deirdre Jacob case. In October 2021, one particular search is carried out across woodland in Taggartstown, Kildare, following yet another tip-off from the public of suspicious activity on the evening Deirdre Jacob disappeared. Just to fill in, you'll hear journalists asking questions in this next piece about this search in the Taggartstown woodland. This pertained to a public tip-off of somebody who recollected that on the evening, July 28, 1998, they had seen a car reverse into that woodland, and just odd activity around the car with the boot opening, that kind of thing. And they later reported it to Gardaí, and it was on that lead that Gardaí commenced a look at this area. There were other leads that had also suggested this area in connection with other cases. So let's just take a listen to that Gardaí press conference during the Kildare search, but just what I've said there might just give it a little bit more context.
The woodland we're at here today was identified as an area of interest that may be relevant to the investigation. For that purpose, today we've commenced a search of that woodland on foot of a search warrant that we've obtained from the District Court. We've engaged the Divisional Search Team along with the Garda National Technical Bureau and a forensic archaeologist to assist us in this search. Search could take up to 3 weeks to complete, and we'll report further if any evidence is found during the course of that search.
Okay, we'll take a few questions.
Can we start with what led us? Why are we here today? Can you just indicate what evidence you have?
Yeah, well, obviously I'm not going to comment on specific evidence. There's obviously it's a live investigation going on. All I'd say is, as part of the review, witness evidence was examined and it was deemed relevant to this area here.
Is it that somebody saw something suspicious and there was reported dislocation in that context?
Yeah, there was unusual activity noticed at the woodland in or around the time Deirdre went missing, and based on that we felt it prudent to commence a thorough search of the area here.
And why didn't you search this area before? What was the story of the witness that came forward?
Yeah, the area has been under review for some time. We have carried out a cursory search initially some time ago, and then the recommendation was to commence a search in October, to give us the best chance of having a success, based on the fact that it's thick woodland, there's a lot of undergrowth there, and the time of year gave us the best opportunity to gather any evidence that may be here.
How are the family doing at this time?
Yeah, the family are aware that this search has taken place, and obviously it's a difficult time for them, and I suppose they're foremost in our thoughts, and they're motivating us to do a good job here today.
You've made a link with Jojo Dollard.
Sorry, I can't.
Okay, we just go. Sorry, just here to the left.
Sorry.
You've made a link with Jojo Dollard, though not a direct link. Can you explain that?
No. The investigation related to Jojo Dollard is a separate investigation. There's a separate senior investigating officer appointed to that investigation, and that investigation is ongoing. Obviously, we're mindful that the location here is not too far away from Moon, so we will be bearing that in mind. But there's no link at this stage.
What was the unusual activity?
I'm not going to comment on that at this stage for operational reasons.
And how much of what are we talking? Is it 3.5 acres of land that you're going to be searching?
Yeah, it's about 3.5 to 4 acres of woodland that will be searched. Yeah.
How many people what units, how many officers? Can you take us to that?
Yeah, the divisional search team will consist of about 12 to 15 people per day. We'll also have an excavator here on site. The Garda National Technical Bureau are providing a crime scene manager, and they're experts they're national experts in relation to these types of searches. And in addition, the forensic archaeologist, Dr. Neve McCullough, is engaged, and she'll be here on site every day while the search is.
Let's move to our analysis and conclusions. It's probably appropriate that I begin with the question everybody asks in cases like Deirdre Jacob, or so-called cases that are believed to be connected with this media-created vanishing triangle. Was Larry Murphy involved, and was he the perpetrator in this case? And I have to be objective here. Is Larry Murphy capable of murder? Yeah, absolutely. Murphy was freed in August 2010 after serving 10 years of a 15-year sentence for abduction, kidnapping, rape and attempted murder. But he's never been convicted of murder. That's not to diminish the horrific offences he's committed. He's a vile man. As long as he walks this earth, he's a dangerous fucking predator, and his history suggests he is well capable of murder. But here's the thing. If you carried out a vox pop, particularly in Ireland, and if you asked the simple question, was Larry Murphy convicted of murder? I absolutely guarantee you the public would answer yes, by probably 50, 60 or more %. And they'd all be wrong. In policing and law, in ultimate conviction, there is no place for casual coulda, woulda, shoulda and maybes. The evidence must be convincing and overwhelming. Our perception of something is not always accurate. Between 2019 and 2021, the Irish police investigation into the murder of Deirdre Jacob identified a person of interest that officers suspected could be the convicted rapist, Larry Murphy, standing outside the post office in Newbridge on the day she vanished, Deirdre, in 1998. The person of interest was detected in 20-year-old CCTV footage taken from Newbridge town at the time Deirdre disappeared, and was put through rigorous forensic enhancement. The enhanced CCTV images showed a man outside the post office, one of the last places she'd called to before she went missing. The person was in and around the post office, close to the time Deirdre called into the post office. The person was in and around the post office close to the time Deirdre called in to post a bank draft to London, according to sources, as reported by the media. Okay. Detectives had set out to rule in or out the 56-year-old Murphy from investigations. They tracked down a number of his former colleagues and other people who knew Murphy back in '98, when he was a jobbing carpenter in Leinster. Most were living overseas, requiring Gardaí to travel abroad to interview them. Each was asked to identify the individual in the enhanced CCTV footage, but Gardaí received conflicting accounts. However, it is understood that at least one person identified the individual in the image as resembling Larry Murphy. The images of the person of interest and Gardaí attempts to identify him formed a central plank of evidence in the Deirdre Jacob murder file that Gardaí submitted to the Director of Public Prosecutions in 2019-2020. The file was submitted after her case was upgraded from a missing person to murder case in 2018. Ultimately, by 2022, the DPP, Department of Public Prosecutions, decided not to prosecute. A Garda Síochána statement at the time confirmed, as part of this investigation, a file was forwarded to the DPP and was recently returned with a direction of no prosecution. The family of Miss Jacob have been informed and have been continuously liaised with. Why did this prosecution of Larry Murphy fail? Because it was based on core inmate whispers within prison that never stood up to scrutiny. Because Murphy fitted a convenient profile without any real evidential proof. Because poor and later enhanced CCTV footage presented to an associate of Murphy suggested that it did maybe resemble Murphy. Because police unearthed some evidence that Larry Murphy offered some carpentry work by dropping in a business card to Deirdre Jacob's granny more than 5 years before her disappearance. But they could provide no actual evidence that Murphy was living or working anywhere near the area of Deirdre Jacob's disappearance on the July day in 1998. At best, Murphy's links directly to the case of Deirdre Jacob were tenuous, based on a business card found in Mrs. O'Grady's shop and a former prison inmate of Murphy who thought a piece of CCTV footage might have resembled Murphy. Of course, this would have nothing to do with a prison inmate looking for a reduction in a sentence. That's how flimsy the circumstantial evidence was against Murphy in this case. Rightly, the Irish DPP threw out the potential case presented because it contained no substantive evidence that would ever lead to a prosecution in a court of law. Now, I've spoken to a number of Gardaí involved in serious investigations, many of them retired now, and they consider this whole episode embarrassing for Garda Síochána, meaning it was just about fit Murphy up with this. He's a bad egg. Get him off the streets of London, Brussels, Amsterdam and Wicklow and Kildare. When he comes back to Ireland, we'll have a chance to nail him. The submitted case file was so shockingly poor, the Gardaí may as well have been fitting up children's show characters Bosco or Dustin the Turkey for the crime. It came at a time when Garda Síochána were establishing their serious crime unit and cold case teams, and several senior investigative Gardaí of long standing for decades were retiring and wanted to, shall we say, tie up unsolved cases and unfinished business to make retirement a little easier on their collective consciousnesses. On Murphy, and concluding him as a suspect, has he killed someone? Very likely. Is he a profound serial killer the media like to portray him as? It's hardly likely. One only has to look at his MO, his modus operandi, to see that if he were a serial killer, he would have been caught red-handed, like he was many decades ago. The myth of the vanishing triangle. In short, just like Larry Murphy, as prime suspect in several cases, much of this is a media-created exercise in suggestion and convenient innuendo, and far too many journalists covering serious crimes and missing persons in Ireland are falling down this rabbit hole. In reality, of the so-called missing vanishing triangle cases in Ireland, maybe you can argue 6 to 8, some argue that there's more, as much as 12, many already have long-standing prime suspects in the cases. The issue has not been chasing some evasive and clever cat serial killer, rather amassing enough evidence to actually convict someone known to the victim. Even in the well-publicised case of Annie McCarrick, the focus is now on known persons to Annie. Despite all the nonsense of Larry Murphy, Johnny Foxes and the mysterious IRA man on the run who had to disappear to New York, the two main suspects in the McCarrick case have never been eliminated. But the Irish police were always happy with the spin of vanishing triangles and distractions from the cases they were following. There are different known prime suspects in the following cases in this so-called vanishing triangle: Fiona Pender, Fiona Sinnott, Imelda Keenan, Patricia Doherty, Tina Satchwell, Patricia Furlong. So let's get back to reality on the Deirdre Jacob case. There's absolutely no evidence that Deirdre wanted to go missing or was deeply troubled at the time she returned to Ireland. Every action and forward plan she had counters this argument. While her home alone activity was waking on July 28 is somewhat circumspect, literally all her movements are forensically tracked from 12 p.m. by CCTV, telephony, data, banking transactions, eyewitnesses who recognised and knew her all the way close to her home, at least within a few hundred metres, around 3 p.m. or just slightly thereafter. There's no arguments here. If there were one or two casual witnesses, unsure maybe of what they saw, maybe she didn't go the obvious walking route home. But we have eyewitnesses who knew her, recognised her, and actually talked to her, even if very briefly. She almost got home. But somehow happened when she was almost home. Something or someone intervened in that final few minutes as she crossed the road farther back, approached the driveway of her home, pulled out the keys to open the front door that likely soon ended her life. But there seems no signs that she ever actually regained access to her home. So let's look at the potential scenarios here. Is this a disappearance committed by someone looking for opportunism, or is it something previously related and more planned? I'm really struggling with this idea of random opportunism by an unknown person to Deirdre, like a complete stranger to the area. If it were night time, maybe, but this is 3 p.m. in the afternoon. No one reports unknown cars or vans or strangers. No one reports seeing Deirdre being bundled into a car. No one spots an unfamiliar car parked close to their house or her house looking out of place. There's no record of burglaries in the area at the very specific time in those weeks leading up to this disappearance. And also remember and note, this residential area was not covered by CCTV at the time in the way other areas close to in and around the Newbridge town area were. There was no shortage of witnesses that day who recognised Deirdre over more than 3 hours. Yet, no one saw a street-side abduction. Every few hundred metres of that walk outside Newbridge to Roseberry, she was seeing or actually acknowledging someone on her way home. Of course, back in 1998, there's a few gaps in that transit journey. It's understandable, but it still does not fit with a random lurking opportunist in the middle of the day. It doesn't make sense. People in a more rural and quieter areas, living in those kind of places, tend to have a more sharper awareness of what is out of the ordinary. A noise, strange passing car or parked car, a van or work going on in a house, just activity that they consider out of the ordinary. Whereas in busier areas, people living there it's busier, they tend to switch off the things that maybe they should have noticed. But that's not how it worked in Roseberry in 1998. So could Deirdre have been abducted from the side of the road? It's possible. But it would have to be quick, unseen and unheard. But it wasn't witnessed. Could a passing car have stopped looking for directions? It's possible. Deirdre was then bundled in and taken away. Deirdre's mother was adamant that her daughter would not have hitchhiked from Newbridge for so short a journey, especially from a stranger. And the witness statements and sightings pretty much tell us that didn't happen. Deirdre walked home. She almost got home. Could she have taken a lift from a neighbour? It's possible. But why would she accept a lift so close to home and another neighbour saw her walking within minutes of her home? Unless it was someone she knew, trusted, and lived close by to her family home. So opportunism and burglary. I've no idea how many burglars hide in the bushes on a July afternoon and just hope to gain entry to a household, plan their escape with the household swag. Remember, the house was found safely locked up. For all intents and purposes, it looked like Deirdre never re-entered her home that day. Whoever abducted Deirdre or had an intention of luring her away had to have a means of transport. Where they parked that car is unknown. Or the car itself belongs in the area and was not considered out of the ordinary. But it would still have taken a hell of an effort to drag Deirdre against her will from the roadside or driveway of her house and carry her to a car. So what's the most likely scenario? Someone abducted Deirdre, known or somewhat known to her. They had a means of immediate transport and she suspected nothing when she arrived back at her driveway. I doubt when Deirdre disappeared, by whatever means, she ever re-entered her house that afternoon. Garda also stated that forensics of the house confirmed that a crime or serious injury never took place there. So, where did Deirdre go? But I want you to consider the following. Deirdre's clothing, bag or purse were never found. Her bank account showed no further activity since the day she disappeared. Her bank draft and letters posted arrived safely to the recipients days later. Beyond Larry Murphy, no known suspects in the case have ever been made public, and there remains no evidence that Murphy himself was ever in Newbridge on the day of her disappearance. Always remember that lack of evidence of something, someone, somewhere is not evidence itself. Deirdre did not own a mobile phone. The search for Deirdre began within hours of her disappearance. There was no delay in evidence gathering on missing time periods or significant missing time periods. So I'm at odds with this case and why we have not heard more about investigations into Deirdre Jacob and any suspects a great deal closer to her locale, given that this is likely the very place she disappeared and came to harm. It's a real struggle to make a complete stranger fit with what is known. Deirdre Jacob was abducted very close to or within the driveway of her home, and it had to be someone either known to her or someone who knew of her, and that their presence at or close to her home was not a surprise to her. It didn't raise any undue attention or may have even been welcomed by Deirdre. I'm open to suggestions, but I cannot find any other plausible scenario that fits the evidence and witness sightings in this case. I'm always open to other possibilities as long as we do not ignore the evidence, or we instead choose to use the evidence to disappear down rabbit holes of or cases of whataboutery that simply don't fit or cannot be explained. Gardaí over the years have continued to trawl over and enhance old CCTV footage with better technology, including facial database recognition, in the hope that they can identify anyone acting suspiciously in Deirdre's vicinity that day or anybody appearing to follow or stalk her movements. It's for this reason that Gardaí have only ever released small snippets of CCTV footage from an extensive volume gathered from inside and outside multiple premises. I suppose that's a way of not compromising any future potential prosecution. There was a reason I decided to highlight the case of Deirdre Jacob now. She will have been missing for exactly 25 years. This year, July 28th, literally 13 days' time as I record. I do expect a renewed appeal by the Irish Gardaí and the family. As always, if that appeal concerns updates or new information on this case, I'll do an update in comments or a community post for subscribers. If any new information is significant enough for me to do a full video update, then I promise you I'll do that. For now, thank you for joining me for this episode of Radio Espial. God bless and take care. I'll see you in the next episode.